says, this is 21, verse 21 of chapter 14 in John's Gospel. He who has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me, and he who loves me shall be loved by my Father, and I will love him and will disclose myself to him. Well, I read that, and the voice inside said, I'm going to do that. Now, I was extremely upset, because I had a wonderful relationship with him. I was very happy. I was enjoying life. I'd started going to a church. I was making new friends. I didn't ask him for anything.
Right, Keith, we're back. You can smile now. I know you've had a very busy few minutes, and of course there's been other things we've been saying over the last 50 minutes or so, but we've just got about maybe 10-15 minutes left, and I know it's your heart's desire to really just sort of encapsulate the missing ingredient in this. Yeah.
When the Lord said to me, I'm going to disclose myself to you, to me, I had this wonderful life, this trust in him. It was very simple. I was very blessed. I was enjoying every day. And I didn't want that to end. And when he said he was going to disclose himself to me, I remember saying to him, what are you going to do? Fly in the window? Because this could not comprehend how he could do that. The fact he seemed to be speaking to me through his word was about as far as I could, up here, understand. I couldn't see what he was going to do. There was nothing at all. I knew nothing whatsoever. I knew nothing at all about the Holy Spirit. I thought I did, but I didn't. And then on August the 20th, at sunset, which of course in Israel is August the 21st, and I'm just mentioning 21 years and 21 days later was 9/11.
Really? Wow.
And I'm very much connected, as you are, with what's going on in this world. Not politically, not with nations, etc., but in the spirit. There's something going on, and we're watchmen. But on that night, I was listening to a tape, a teaching given by a man called Hal Lindsey. You've probably heard of Hal Lindsey. Well, he was around in those days, and he's still around.
Sure, yeah.
And this is 1980, August the 20th, sunset. And so it would be 7 o'clock at night. I reckon it was 7 o'clock in the evening, and I was lying there on my sofa, listening intently to the word. I'd been a believer for May, the end of May, June, July, now we're third week in August. And without any warning, no anticipation, I wouldn't have known what to anticipate, without any warning at all. It was as if my arm had been jammed into the national grid. I was hit with the most staggering, it wasn't electricity, but it was the most incredible power. And it was instant. And in the depths of your being, right in your gut, I don't want to be base about it, but it seemed to be through where my spine is, it seemed to open. And I went through in spirit and up And
so would that be at the base of your spine?
it felt like deep down inside me, in my gut, as I put it, where my liver and kidneys are. It seemed to open, and there was light, and I went through and up. It was the weirdest experience. I've never spoken about that before, but recently I heard somebody say exactly the same thing. So I don't feel nervous
You're in good company.
in sharing it, because I'm not the only one.
No.
And I went up, and I found myself in this blinding light, staggering light. I could see nothing, nothing at all. But I was in a place, and it didn't seem to have square walls. It seemed more like, I don't want to say more like a pyramid, because I actually couldn't see it, but I just got the impression it wasn't rigid. And in this place, there were two beings. I was aware of two beings. And my mind said, it's the Father and the Son. And that's about the last thing my mind did. Because I was hit with this wave of this staggering love I'd never experienced before. Just huge. And it was, even though I was lying down, it was knocking me for six. It was crushing, huge. My physical being couldn't, it was too much. And it seemed to go in waves, because you'd feel it coming more and more and more, and then...
I've heard people talk about this.
I've heard Ian McCormick describe
that's it. Yeah, Ian. Yeah.
And I had that actually, and I've heard others. In fact, J.L. Moody, you remember the great...
Sure.
He had a very similar experience. And this love, all I could do was worship, and no one taught me how to worship. No one you don't need to get taught. When you're in his presence, you will worship. You don't need to read a book or hear any teaching on the subject. You will just worship. And he started in spirit. And this is the phenomena why one person can see an angel and the person next to them sees nothing. In spirit, the presence is so strong that it's almost as if you're a bat. Excuse me putting it this way, but you're sending out a sonar signal and you're getting back an actual image in spirit. So even though it's impossible to see optically, you are in fact seeing with your spirit. You're sensing the presence. The presence is so strong. He started to walk towards me. And this, my mind again kicked in. He's going to hug me. He's going to put his arms around me. And I needed hugging. Every human being does. And he got closer and closer. And by the way, while he's coming towards me, these waves didn't stop. They're still going on. And I can explain to you, because he showed me afterwards, what that agape love is. Agape is the Greek word for love, and it's very special. God's love is very unique. He came towards me. I thought he was going to put his arms around me and hug me. He stepped inside me. And I cannot tell you, talk about intimacy. It was awesome. He came inside, and then it was over, simply because I couldn't continue praising, because I couldn't worshiping, because I couldn't breathe. I actually was suffocating because everything was coming out of me. And I came down.
Is this the drowning experience?
No,
that you mentioned?
No, that is quite different. That was a real, literal drowning.
Because I'd love to just capture that. Yeah.
that was before I was saved. That was something else.
Mm-hmm.
That was. But this was the night I was baptized in the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I hadn't really been going to church for very long. And no one had been able to get at me with this nonsense of, oh, that only happens once. You only have one great event in your life. Which is just as well, because I kept telling others. And
it's a topping up, is there?
There's more than a topping up. He's very wonderful. Yeah, you can have dry periods, but wow,
Sure.
oh, he can really. Yeah.
So proverbial London buses, they don't happen or something.
So that was when my life. I can remember the date and the time, 7 o'clock at night, and that is the day. That is the most important date in my whole life. I can't remember the day. I haven't got the date when I was saved, but I have got this date ingrained upon me.
How did people around you kind of react to what was going on for you? And I'm just looking at the time element, but how did they kind of react to the situation? Was it a positive thing, or I don't really understand that, brother?
I was meeting with people, but they kept asking questions, because some of the folks I knew were not what we would call Pentecostal, and
Sure.
these are words we use.
Right.
And I seem to have stepped across the line. But for some months I didn't speak in tongues in another language. And the reason was, somebody had told me, and I know this for a fact, somebody had told me that letting yourself speak in a tongue, allowing your spirit to express in that way, was satanic. And I believed it. You see how a lie goes in?
Absolutely.
And I wasn't consciously aware of why I wasn't speaking in a tongue.
Because that is the heavenly language.
Indeed.
It's cut through.
And I asked God, I kept asking the Lord for this tongue, for this language, because everyone said, oh, if you don't speak in tongues, you're not baptized in the Holy Spirit, which I knew to be incorrect, because I knew that what had happened to me that night, it was so wonderful, it almost killed me. Yeah. And I'll just follow through, if I may. Nearly 2 years later, the Christian life isn't always easy. In fact, it isn't easy. My opinions of how and what the Lord does maybe are just my opinions, but it seems He cuts and prunes and takes a lot of things away from us. And it hurts. It's like I once heard someone say, you squeal like a rabbit having his fur coat taken off. It's not comfortable.
No.
And about 18 months after that, I was back in Los Angeles, so I must have been back over to the UK. I remember I was back in LA, I'd flown in, and I was in such agony of spirit. I was actually lying on the floor of this bedroom where I was staying. And I was crying out to God with all my heart. I just cannot live this Christian life. It seemed like World War III was going on inside of me. I just couldn't do it. It was breaking me up. I wanted to do it, but I couldn't. There seemed to be a war going on. And I'm literally on the carpet, and I can remember it was one of those shaggy bedroom carpets, you know, and it was going up my nose. Just going up my nose.
Start sneezing and all.
And I cried out, Lord, I cannot live this Christian life. And clear as anything, He spoke to me. He said, you're not supposed to.
Wow.
And that is, of course, the mystery of life. The great I am. And then after that, I felt this very uncomfortable feeling, which didn't make sense because I hadn't eaten anything that was